Today's first lesson is from Jeremiah, chapter 1, verses 1 through 14. The words of Jeremiah, son of Hilkiah, one of the priests at Anathoth in the territory of Benjamin. The word of the Lord came to him in the 13th year of the reign of Josiah, son of Amon, king of Judah, and through the reign of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah, down to the 5th month of the 11th year of Zedekiah, son of Josiah, king of Judah, when the people of Jerusalem went into exile. The call of Jeremiah. The word of the Lord came to me, saying, Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Alas, sovereign Lord, I said, I do not know how to speak. I am too young. But the Lord said to me, Do not say, I am too young. You must go to everyone I send you to and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you and will rescue you, declares the Lord. Then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth and said to me, I have put my words in your mouth. See, today I appoint you over nations and kingdoms, to uproot and tear down, to destroy and overthrow, to build and to plant. The word of the Lord came to me. What do you see, Jeremiah? I see the branch of an almond tree, I replied. The Lord said to me, You have seen correctly, for I am watching to see that my word is fulfilled. The word of the Lord came to me again. What do you see? I see a pot that is boiling, I answered. It is tilting toward us from the north. The Lord said to me, From the north, disaster will be poured out on all who live in the land. Thanks be to God.
All right. Does anyone know who's like a sound person? Can I use this one or using the podium? Is it possible to use this one? If I can, I would like to stroll around. Do you have to like go turn it on or something? I don't know. Is this? Checkity check. Can you hear me? Is it coming through?
Not yet. A little bit more.
Hello. It's okay. I can just use the podium link if it's. Hello.
There you go.
Hello. Oh, sweet. Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah, great. Thank you.
Proper.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. Okay, I don't know. I don't know how Greg does it. He's all the way back here, and it's so far away. I'd rather be closer to you guys without generating any feedback. Okay, so we'll get to the second lesson kind of partway through the sermon, but I'll just jump right in and share what I've got to share with you guys. So my name is Dan. Many of you know me. I'm a psychologist, and I'm not a Christian psychologist, unfortunately, or a biblical counselor or something like that. Many of my clients probably don't realize that I'm a Christian, and I think that's okay. I like to think of myself humbly as a psychologist version of the band U2. I'm a Christian, but I don't market myself that way. So as I was preparing my talk, this sermon for today, one of my guiding questions was, how can psychology help us to live the Christian life better? That's kind of what I'll try to share with you today is my reflections on that question. I know a lot of people tend to worry when they realize they're dealing with a psychologist. Is this person going to analyze me or something? And I think a lot of that goes back to Freud. Freud and his early followers were these people. They really thought they understood something about their clients that the clients didn't understand about themselves. They were supposed to be these dark forces in your unconscious that were at battle with each other and stuff. And the psychologist knew about that stuff and the client was totally oblivious, and the healing came when you made that unconscious stuff conscious. But don't worry, I don't know how to do that kind of therapy, and I'm not analyzing you guys. I wouldn't know how to begin that. I went to grad school for CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and that's pretty cut and dry, straightforward. You try to change somebody's thoughts basically so they feel better, or change their behavior so they feel better. And the type of therapy I was trained in, we spent a lot of time trying to diagnose people accurately. There's this book called the DSM. It's sort of the Bible of psychiatry, and it has all these diagnoses in it: depression, anorexia, schizophrenia, alcohol use disorder, mild, moderate, or severe. It's all this stuff. There's like 500 or something like that, different diagnoses. It's crazy. And I used to spend a lot of time thinking about which diagnosis does the person have, and my goal was to rid the person of that diagnosis. So they come in with panic disorder, and I'm trying to get it so that they don't have panic disorder anymore. That was kind of my goal as a psychologist. But that's not really what I do anymore either. So you might ask, what are you good for? If you're not analyzing anybody and you're not getting rid of any disorders, what is the point? Well, my goal now, I would say, when I treat clients, is to help them to live a rich, full, meaningful life in the presence of a full range of emotions. So we're not trying to control emotions or get rid of them. We're trying to live a rich, full, meaningful life, expecting that many positive and negative emotions are going to come. We're better off accepting that than fighting against that. That's the idea of the work that I do now. So today I want to see if that particular approach, that's called ACT, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, that's the brand name for what I just described, can that help us live as Christians better somehow? So the main thing I'm going to talk about today is values. One of the key things in ACT is values. Values are just what you really, really want in life, deep down, your deepest desires for life. They're the things that on your deathbed you'll wish you had more of during your life. And values are different than goals. Goals are things that can be accomplished. Abby just bought a house. That's great. That's a good thing. But getting pregnant could be a goal. Passing a test, getting a promotion, these are all good things, but they're things that once you accomplish them, they can't guide your behavior anymore. You're done with that. You've got to move on to the next goal. Values are different. They're always there. Even if you realize a value in one situation, the next situation can still call for it just as much. So, for example, having compassion. Maybe that's a value which you could have in many different situations. You'll never be done with it. They're like landmarks on the horizon that you can always move towards, but you'll never reach. They guide where you want to walk. So I'm trying to help my patients realize what their values are and then help them live out those values. And I think if our behaviors are lined up with our values, that's pretty good. That might be about the best we can hope for in life. Suffering is going to come, but hopefully we stood for something good in the midst of it. And values are like pizza toppings. If I like Hawaiian pizza and you like pepperoni and mushroom, there's really not much way that we can criticize each other. It's not like my pizza preference is better than yours or vice versa. We just have different preferences. And that's kind of how values are usually thought of. One value isn't better than another. It's just what somebody desires deep down. And you might say that probably raises a concern. I would say in 60% of you, wait a minute, I know there's some trashy people out there. They probably have really crappy values like greed and sex and drugs and gluttony. That's what they want deep down. What a waste trying to do therapy with someone like that, helping them have more gluttony or greed or whatever. And I would agree with you. I would have a serious moral objection with working with someone to help them get more money or something like that if greed was their value. But I haven't actually run into anyone that once you get past the surface stuff people might be stuck in, loops and stuff like that, what people really want deep down, I haven't run into anyone yet that was like greed or dominating other people or something like that. So I think that for everyone I've met so far, there are these good values deep down. But what about Christians? You might think that Christians would be in complete agreement about values. And indeed, we might hold a flexible group of values, a lot of us in common in this room. But still, if I ask you, what are Christian values, do you think everyone in this room would say the same thing? Do they include family? That's sort of in the culture that Christians like families. But I think the Apostle Paul would disagree with that one. He specifically said not to have families so that you can devote your life to the gospel, at least to one of the churches he wrote to. What about justice? Is that a Christian value? Freedom? Compassion? Jesus seemed to have compassion, but I think the Buddhists really like that one. Crap, did they beat us to the chase? Is that a Buddhist value, not a Christian value? You know? There's actually some things to think about. And like, is this a Christian value or not? So there's a lot swimming in your head, and there's a lot to discuss, which we don't have time to do today. So suffice it to say that even within the Christian faith, I think there are landmarks that deep down people probably really desire that are consistent with their Christian faith, and it might be different for one person than another in this room, what your deep desires for life are versus somebody sitting next to you. And I think that's okay. It could be one way in which we're the body of Christ, where together we make up a really beautiful set of values, and individually we're only kind of resonating with part of that big sea of beautiful values that God has given us to desire. Okay. And this is different than, by the way, what you're good at. That's another thing when you think of the body of Christ, like, oh, she's really good at being nice, and I'm not a very nice person, so that's just her gift. That's her spiritual gift, is being nice, and not for me. This is not what I'm talking about. Values are not what you're good at. They're what you yearn for, okay? So that's what we want to think about. And normally when I work with my clients who aren't Christians, I say values are just 'cause. You know, just 'cause I like Hawaiian pizza, just 'cause. I don't know why I like it, I just do. And that's kind of how values are. But for Christians, it's a little different. You might really desire mercy, and I might really desire faithfulness, and we might not know why. But for both of us, part of the reason that we resonate with that value probably has something to do with the fact that it's been passed down for thousands of years through our Christian tradition. That's a powerful thing. And it has its source in God himself. That's pretty powerful too. So it's not just like a pizza preference. It's something deeper, especially for Christians. So values are great, right? Here's the problem. We're leaving a lot on the table in terms of actually living them out. And why is that? Well, in the story of ACT, the sort of therapy I do, the villain is the thing that stops us from living out our values is language, words. We're the only species that has it. I know Rosie here, the dog, understands some words, but not in the same way that we do. We think in language. We think by taking one idea and relating it to another idea. When we're little kids, this is highly reinforced. We say to a kid, let me see here, my list of examples so I don't go on for too long. We say, oh, what color is it? Oh, good, it's purple. No, it's not green. So this is saying, like, this is in the category of things that are purple or whatever. This is actually a difficult color to name. It's a tough one. What is it? Oh, periwinkle. Great. Yeah, so we get really good at it. Exactly what category is it in? Is it, which one is bigger? Which one is bigger? Well, are you talking about the surface of the object, or which one is heavier? And so we're comparing things. We're saying, where did this come from? Came from a tree. That's what paper is made of. This thing comes from that thing. This thing is bigger than that thing. This thing is purple. So we're doing it all the time, and we really can't stop doing it. Our brain is like a ticker tape. Those old-fashioned ticker tapes in the stock market, just putting out stocks and their prices? Our brain is like that with relations. It's just like, this thing is bigger than that thing. This thing is purple, blah, blah, blah. I'm not very good, I'm probably going to do a bad job at this sermon. Our brain is constantly producing relations. And we get stuck, basically. We might see a value out there on the horizon. We want to move towards it. And we end up getting stuck in our words and our relations. Our relation-making machine gets us stuck. And it's almost like being stuck in the current of the ocean. We're like, oh, look at that. I'm going to try to swim over there. But our words pull us like a current over to somewhere else we didn't want to be. So that's kind of the idea. I won't get into any more about words and stuff, but that's sort of the villain is language. One more thing about words is they help us to suffer. I was mentioning Rosie a moment ago. If Rosie the dog has enough to eat, and she's sheltered, and she's with her family, she's content. We're the only species that can have all our physical needs met and say, I wish Mom was still here to enjoy that. And we can have this searing pain despite everything immediately present being good. We're the only species probably that can do that, and that's because of our language-based thought that we're able to do that. And our language-based thought, what it does a lot of the time, and the reason it makes us suffer, is it brings us to the past or it brings us to the future, even though the present might be pretty good. So try this for a second. See if this is true for you. See if your mind tends to spend a lot of time in the future or in the past. You're all sitting in the pew, so you've got a knee handy, right? Put your hand on your knee. Your right hand or your left hand, actually, doesn't matter. And what I want you to do is, if you're comfortable, just stare at the neck of the person in front of you. Or, if that is strange, then just close your eyes. Or you could stare at the pew. Doesn't really matter. But just kind of like, you're going to start paying attention not to what's in the room. You're going to pay attention to your own mind for a second. And so I'm just going to close my eyes as I do this with you. But for like 30 seconds, I just want you to take your finger and you're going to watch what your mind does. Just let your mind think about whatever. And if you're thinking about something that's happening right now in this room, let your finger stay in the middle of your knee. But if your mind starts thinking about something in the future, like when this sermon will be over, move your finger to the right. If you're thinking about something in the past, is she still mad at me because I did that? Move your finger to the left. Just watch what you think about and move it to the left if it's in the past, right if it's in the future. I'll let you know when 30 seconds are up. Okay. How many of you had your finger in the middle the whole time? You were just like totally present. Okay, I would say maybe 10% of us. How many of you were in the future a significant chunk? How many of you were in the past a significant chunk? Sweet. So there you go. My point is proven that our mind spends a lot of time in the past, a lot of time in the future. And I think that helps us to suffer more. We'd probably be happier if we were more in the present. Nice job, Chris Foll and my mother-in-law. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so where was I? So language makes us suffer. We do this relating automatically. The language is like a sticky spider web, kind of. We can get stuck because language is tough to disengage from. Try this. Think about a soccer ball. Just for like 5 more seconds. Think about that. Okay, so I don't know how many of you thought about just a soccer ball that whole time, but immediately I thought of the World Cup. And then my mind went to Haiti. They don't have a government. You know? It's really bad there, you know? Haiti played last night, lost to Scotland, 1-0, in Foxborough. But anyway, so you see that our mind, when we raise one thing, all these other relations are automatically raised, and sometimes they're painful stuff to think about. Okay, another example, this when I was writing this sermon, it took me, I spent all week writing this sermon that was like mostly my full-time job, and I would begin to write, and it would be like I'd look at what I had already written and like, where should I add a paragraph or whatever, and when I did that, I was trying to figure out what I should write next, and the thought, this is bad, would come into my mind, or that sounds horrible, or you don't have much time left. And then something like, you're never going to write a book. You're going senile. I know I'm only 43, but that thought was really there. So, you know, sometimes I really didn't like it when those feelings came up. Those are painful thoughts. And so another thought came up. You can fix this. You can make this feeling go away. You'll reset, and then you'll feel better. Then you'll be able to write. So my go-to reset is playing chess. Okay, so I had the thought, you can play a game of chess and you won't feel this despair of being senile and never writing a book. So I would play a game of chess. 1-minute games of chess is what I do. Each person gets 1 minute on chess.com. It's like a speed chess thing. And I looked at my stats on Friday, just Monday to Friday this week. I played 200 games of chess, Monday to Friday. About 40 games per day. That's a lot of wasted time. My values in life don't include play a ton of chess, okay? But it was like my word stuff, it swept me away over to this place I didn't want to be. I wanted to be going this way, make a good sermon, but my words were like the anxiety and stuff just pulled me over there. There were times where I was able to notice the words and let them be there and continue working. At one point I wrote this: right now, as I prepare this sermon, I'm noticing those thoughts. Noticing tightness in my chest, tension, pit in my stomach, and I'm moving my fingers, typing one word at a time. A gift from God was that during my preparation, there was this story in a book I was reading where some famous writer was asked, how'd you write all those books? And he said, I'd never written a book. I just wrote a page a day a bunch of times. That was a helpful idea for me to return to as I was writing this. See how I'm doing for time. It's 11 o'clock. Yeah, I think I'll skip that part, okay. Is that my mind or Mike? Okay. Okay, so what do we do about these thoughts, about the notion that they can sweep us away and stuff? How do we not get stuck? How do we move towards our values? Well, there's a lot to that answer, and it's basically the work I do with my clients, which can take weeks or months or even years, is focused on that. But I'll give you 2 quick points for today. One is it's helpful to constantly return to the now, to the present. Because usually if we're getting swept away, thinking about how I'm never going to write a book, that's something in the future. Right now, I was in a cafe trying to write. So constantly returning to the now is good. So that's a helpful thing. Real quick, I'm going to teach you a skill if you want to do that. I think it's a very helpful skill for me. I do it all the time, and it's helpful for my clients. So if you are up for trying something new, try this out with me. You don't have to do it, but it's helpful. It's a helpful way to return to the now. It's called ACE, and that stands for Acknowledge, Connect, Engage. So we're going to acknowledge what's happening inside, then we're going to connect with our bodies, and then we're going to engage with what's around us, okay? So if you want to try it, go for it. So you can close your eyes, or you can again stare at the neck or the pew that's in front of you. And just look in your body for a second, like with your mind's eye. Kind of scroll, especially from your belly button to your chin. Can you feel anything? Do you feel hot? Probably. Do you feel any butterflies, tightness, sinking feeling, rising feeling, anything like that? Tension in your shoulders, anything like that. Just notice what you can physically feel. And then notice what your mind wants to do. What is my word machine, my ticker tape of mind wanting to do right now? What's it thinking about? Just watch it for a second. And then try to come up with a label for that. So say, I'm feeling anxiety, or I'm feeling calm, or I'm feeling angry, whatever you're feeling. So that's the acknowledge piece. So once you've acknowledged what you're feeling, you can open your eyes, and we're going to just connect with our body. And the easiest way to do that is to stretch. So just like do some stretching. I like to do this, that you want to viscerally feel it. And connecting with our body is a great way to undo the word machine. The mind is this word machine we can get stuck in, and connecting with your body is a great way to get unstuck. It reminds you have this body that you have control over, agency over, no matter what is going on in here. And the last thing is engage with what's around you. So just look around you. Look at the person next to you. Look at the walls, the fans. We are in church right now. It is Sunday morning at 11:04. Okay? So that's ACE. It's something I find to be helpful to not get swept away and to return to the now. And then I usually ask myself, what should I be moving toward? What's the value I want to be moving towards right now? on the horizon in this now. Okay? All right. So that's one piece that's really helpful, returning to the present. The rest of the sermon is going to focus on the second piece that I hope you find helpful, which is clarifying what your values are. I said a minute ago, there's probably a lot of different values floating around in this room, but I think a lot of people go through their life pretty fuzzy about what their deepest desires are deep down, what their values are, even if they're Christians. There's this song by the band Fun called Most Nights. The chorus is, "What do I stand for? What do I stand for? Most nights, I don't know." And I can relate to that. Sometimes I really don't know what I should be standing for in a particular situation. So it can be really helpful to deliberate on that question. What do you stand for deep down? To concentrate on that for a few minutes. So that is the point of the rest of the sermon, is to help you to do that. I'm going to tell you two sort of stories. And the goal of both of the stories is to activate values for you, to bring up some concepts which I hope you resonate with, like at least one. And actually, if you don't mind, just get a pen or a pencil ready and just write on the bulletin or something. If I utter a value or one occurs to you apart from what I'm saying, something that you really desire deep down, write it down, because we're going to do something with it at the end. My goal is to just have one of these come up for you that you really resonate with, that's a deep desire in your life that you want to move towards on the horizon. Capiche? All right. So, a good way to elicit values is to think about your heroes. Who's your hero? And what is that about that person that might be a value for you? One of my heroes is Eugene Peterson. He wrote the Message translation of the Bible, and he also wrote a lot of other books. And Eugene Peterson, one of the first books that he wrote was about one of his heroes, whose name is Jeremiah, the prophet Jeremiah. And I love the way Peterson tells the story of Jeremiah. He just makes it come alive. So, probably when Cassie was reading that passage from Jeremiah a little while ago, I'm preaching on it, and I was like, zoning out. There's all these words and stuff. I don't know what it's talking about, but Peterson, the way he tells the story, makes it come alive. So I'm going to tell you like a very short version of Eugene Peterson's book, Run with the Horses, which is about Jeremiah. If you like it, or if you want to learn more about it, read that whole book. But I hope there's some stuff about Jeremiah that activates values for you. Okay, so Jeremiah was born in a very dark time in the history of the people of God. He was born right after Manasseh had been the king. Manasseh was probably the most evil king that God's people ever had. He was into sorcery. He hired these sorcerers to manipulate the people. And he built a bunch of Asherah poles, which might not sound that bad until you realize an Asherah pole was a gigantic phallic symbol made to impregnate the sky goddess. And so he was abandoning God's way and taking the ways of the people around him, even including child sacrifice. He sacrificed his own son to appease some false god. So really lost his way. Was not God's people, this was Judah, the northern kingdom, were no longer really a theocracy based on Yahweh. They were following the evil ways of the people around them. And then Manasseh died, and then Manasseh's son was king, and then he died. He was actually killed, I think, and then this kid becomes king, Josiah. And that's the context in which Jeremiah was prophet, is this boy king. Josiah is the king, and Jeremiah is the prophet after kind of like it had been really bad for a while. So God gives Jeremiah these two images, the boiling pot and the almond branch. So the boiling pot is just basically saying this danger from the north. Babylon is going to come take you guys away and bring you to exile. Evil terror is coming. And then the other thing, the almond branch, which is probably totally impossible to understand until you read someone like Eugene Peterson explain to you that it's like a redbud tree for Jeremiah. Redbud tree is the first sign of spring. You see those flowers. It's really special because winter's grip is crumbling. That's what the almond branch was. It was one of the first flowering branches for Jeremiah. So the sign of hope, even though there's terror there. So Jeremiah lived in the tension between those things, hope and terror. And in it, his central reality was that God is the one we need to worry about. His concern was not to avoid the terror or to cling to the blossom of the almond branch. It was to live faithfully under God's direction. God was his ultimate reality. We can say he had a God-centered view of the world, which made whatever happened with the boiling pot okay, because there was this trust that God would take care of his people ultimately, even if they had to go through some really tough things with Babylon. And there was a trust again that the almond branch would blossom. So he wasn't worried about what the crowd was saying or what they thought of him. God was his measuring stick for him and for the crowd. At one point, Jeremiah is feeling really tired of preaching to the people, and God says to him, "You're tired now? Walking with men? How are you going to run with the horses?" In other words, God has this whole other level of existence that is not the commerce life or whatever, like man to man, woman to woman life. God wants to raise Jeremiah up on this whole nother level. And I find that really attractive, trusting God and going on for this whole other level based on a God-centered reality. How does that sound to you? Do you want a whole nother level? If it sounds good to you, write it down. So fairly early on in Jeremiah's life, they were cleaning out the temple from the idols and stuff that Manasseh had put in there, and they discovered this scroll in the temple in like a back room or something, and it was the book of Deuteronomy probably. And they read it, and they were like, "Holy crap, sounds like God wants a relationship with us." We forgot that, basically. But there was this renewed, and they read it in front of the whole people and stuff, and it was this big revival, basically, when they found the scroll of Deuteronomy. And it was great. But the problem was, it was like a surface-level revival. So the people were all like, "Yes, God, you're great. We want to go to your temple and stuff." But their hearts weren't being changed in the way that God wanted. And that was sort of Jeremiah's job for the rest of his life, was getting deep down into the people so that God pervaded their lives and made his way into their actions in the day-to-day, as well as going to the temple on Saturday or whatever it was. So Jeremiah wanted depth. How does that sound? Do you want depth? If it sounds good, write it down. So that was Jeremiah's job, to wake up every morning and tell the people of God that God wanted more from them. And it was hard. People didn't want to hear it. Jeremiah was ridiculed. He was put in stocks, thrown in a cistern. He needed perseverance for that. God said Jeremiah was going to have to be like bronze walls, probably the most solid thing that existed in that time, if I had to imagine. And he was that. He was a steady, steadfast, faithful voice for decades. He never lost sight of the prize. At one point, Jeremiah said, "Whenever I speak, I cry out proclaiming violence and destruction, rape and murder. So the word of the Lord has brought me insult and reproach all day long. But if I say, I will not mention his word or speak anymore in his name, his word is like a fire in my heart, a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in, and indeed I cannot." So his perseverance it was mixed with passion. He had this fire in him. Do you want a fire? Write it down. And the last thing with Jeremiah is that he was present. He was good at staying in the now, I think. There was one point at the end of Jeremiah's ministry where the people, there was this partial exile for a while, and some of the people were carted off to Babylon, but then they attempted, and there was a puppet king from Babylon installed, and they attempted to overthrow the puppet king through an alliance with Egypt, and this failed. And Egypt was like, "See you later, good luck." And then Babylon is just like sharpening its blades, about to just totally take over and take everybody into exile. And I think a little before that, actually, during the partial exile, Jeremiah wrote a letter to the people that were in exile, and he said, well, they were under the impression they weren't going to be there very long. So they were like, "I'm not even going to unpack. I'm going to be back in Israel soon." And Jeremiah was like, "No, plant a vineyard, get married, have kids, learn some Babylonian recipes. You're going to be there for a while. This is your now. God is still your God, even though you're there." So that's a helpful thing too. So Jeremiah was good at being present. If you want to be present, write it down. All right. We're doing good. Yes. Just one more story for you, and that's I'm going to talk about Jesus for a little bit. So that, again, with Jeremiah, if there's anything about him that you think is really good that you want in your life, make sure you wrote it down. Now we get to the second lesson. So in John 6:66 through 69, it says, after this, many of Jesus' disciples left. Jesus had some hard words, and so a bunch of disciples left. They no longer wanted to be associated with him. And then Jesus gave the 12 their chance to leave. He said, do you also want to leave? And Peter replied, Master, to whom would we go? You have the words of real life, eternal life. We've already committed ourselves, confident that you are the Holy One of God. Man, just picture that. Picture having that level of confidence in somebody. It sounds like Peter really did have this stuff that Jesus taught him that was really, really powerful for him, that even when life got hard, he didn't want to leave. So what is that? I bet you've had experiences with Jesus like that too. Some of Jesus' teachings probably are the words of life, things that are really, really powerful for you. And my goal in the next couple of minutes is just to activate one or two of those. So I'm going to read you some of Jesus' commands. And secular psychologists who practice ACT probably bristle at the idea of following a command. Values are supposed to be stuff that you want to do, not something that someone else is controlling you to do. And a command kind of sounds like that. But for Christians, it's not like that. If you think of commands are like good rules that God gave us. If you think of baseball, baseball, there's rules, but there's still freedom. You can pitch it high, you can pitch it low, outside, inside, but you can't bring out a cannon and shoot that towards home plate. The game would disintegrate if you kind of broke the rules. So freedom can really only exist within constraints. Another good example of this is that when I was a kid, I was free, had a lot of unstructured play. My parents did not make me practice the piano or anything like that. And now I can't play the piano. So I actually wish that my parents had constrained me to practice the piano a little bit every day when I was a kid, because then now I would have the freedom to play the piano, which I do not have. See? So it's not as simple as like, never follow a command. Sometimes constraining yourself in a certain way is actually the way to the real freedom that you want. So let's listen to some of Jesus' commands. I'm going to just read through several of them. I'm going to go slow and see if one or two are your Hawaiian pizza for this season of life, okay? Values that your heart longs to follow. If you hear one that's good, write it down. Repent. Believe in God. Follow me. Deny yourself. Take up your cross. Seek God's kingdom. Abide in me. Love your enemies. Pray for those who mistreat you. Forgive others. Take the lowest place. Wash one another's feet. Serve each other. Don't store up treasures on earth, store them up in heaven. Beware of greed. Sell possessions and give them to the needy. Pray in secret, not for show. Don't swear oaths. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Don't retaliate. Turn the other cheek. Remove the log from your own eye first. Clean the inside of the cup. Do not fear. Believe. Make use of what God entrusted to you. Make disciples of all nations. So we just briefly reviewed Jeremiah and some commands from Jesus. Just think for a second. Remember, look at what you might have already written down. Try to come up with something in there. Or if nothing in there actually activated a value for you, that's okay. Just think of the best thing that you can right now that you think is something God wants for you that you really want to, that's burning in your heart. See what comes up for you. You can picture, one way to help do this is picture your own tombstone. Here lies Dan. What would you want it to say most? So I hope you've got something, at least something that might be of value, and wrote that down. That's great. We're almost done. Elon Musk was in the news this week. Did you hear about that? SpaceX went public. $2 trillion IPO, the largest in history by double. Made Elon the first trillionaire ever in human history. He was talking about why SpaceX is valuable, presumably to entice investors to buy it, which they did. The stock went up 20%. On the first day that it was there on Friday. And he said something that I found to be disturbing. He said something like, what we need is a vision of the future that gets us up in the morning because we're excited to see what's next. I think for us as Christians, the things that we want to be getting us up in the morning have been around for thousands of years. And they're not flashy. And we forget them a lot. We need church every week and other stuff like that to remind us it's right there in front of us. We don't need to necessarily go to the moon or whatever SpaceX is trying to do to have really good goals to be walking towards and get us up in the morning. All right, so last thing. I just want to take 2 more minutes of your time. And this is just time for you to do yourself. But I want you to take your value that you think is important, and I want you to set a specific goal. Remember that guy who wrote a lot of books? He said, I never wrote a book. I just did page by page. I wrote a page a day. This week is your page. Set a goal that's specific and measurable, i.e. you'll be able to tell if you achieve the goal or not, and attainable. It should be at least an 80% chance of success. Invariably, when people try to set goals like this, they set goals that are way too ambitious, and they fail a lot. I want you to succeed. So make it a very small baby goal. One step towards that value on the horizon. Specific, measurable, attainable, and realistic. Well, I'm talking about SMART goal, exactly, yeah. I always forget the R. But anyway, yeah, you got it. So just write it down. Tell the person next to you, or especially if you know that person, what your goal is, if it's not too personal. And that'll put some social pressure on you to do it. So I'm going to give you 60 seconds to do that. I'll give you 30 seconds to write down the goal, and then 30 seconds to share, because it's so hot in here. There's a lot of pressure for me to be done, I feel. Thoughts? Ticker tape. We've got a hymn after this, do we? Do we have a hymn after this? Yeah. All right, now if you've got a goal and you feel comfortable, say it to somebody in your pew, what your goal is for the week. All right, well, that's it. Let me just close with a quick word of prayer. Word. God, please use this mess of words that I just dumped on this crowd of people and do something good with it. Amen.